Today's number is 7,360. That's the number of cards you can fit in a large flat rate priority box and ship me your bulk. It's also the number of calories I need to consume daily, basically, to just keep up with my kids. But yesterday I told you I was going to talk about what it actually looks like when you're evaluating for somebody to join your team. Today I'm going to deliver on that. What it ultimately comes down to is availability, grit, respect, trust, and the difference between what I call execute and excel. But before I get to that, my name is Ryan, and I started a TCG business with over $1 million in debt. I'm here to turn cardboard into cash and move from dire straits into distro. Every day I go over the challenges and successes of growing a TCG business and what I accomplished on the previous day. If watching someone grow their business in this space sounds interesting to you, hit the subscribe button and tell the algorithm that you approve this message. Now, when people ask me what I look for in someone I want to work with, the answer is almost never skill set. Skills can be taught. Almost anything can be taught, guys. Actually, I want somebody who wants to learn. Half the time when somebody brings me their skills, it's what they learned, and sometimes it's not the way I want them to do it. So the most important ability to me is actually availability, not just because it means being physically present, but it means being mentally present in it, right? You want somebody who, when they show up, it matters. They're communicating about it. And when you're communicating with them, it's something that they pick up and they understand. They just don't want to be saying something to say something. You want them to have a conversation with you, be reachable, be reliable, be willing to ask questions of you, to challenge you in some cases. I speak pretty often to my team, and I run a fairly large team. I love my team at my day job, and when we're talking, I tell them you have got to speak truth to power you, even if that means me, right? Sometimes it's about taking whatever the notes are, whatever's happening in your day, and saying, "Hey, boss, this thing doesn't work, or this thing isn't working because of X," and that may put me in a position that I got to go talk to somebody else, right? Whether it's a fellow director or my boss or whatever. That's on the work side. That's how I deal with it in work for me now, but that doesn't change anything as it relates to the business. I want somebody who doesn't just challenge the challenge, but is willing to challenge and say, "Hey, I know that you think that this is the best way to do sifting or sorting or whatever it may be, but have you tried this? It's actually working better for me." And to be honest with you, I want what's going to be best for them, because when we get to execute in Excel, that's going to really come up. So availability is the foundation built on everything. Okay. Next is grit and willingness to learn. Grit is something about keeping moving when the work gets hard and unglamorous, and this work is unglamorous. Okay, there's a reason people bring me their bulk, even though they could probably do the same things themselves. The guy who I met with yesterday, who dropped off the 50,000 or almost 50,000 cards worth a lot, he asked me the same questions as always. What do you do with it? Why do you do this? That feels like a lot of work. We had the same comms. We made a few jokes. It's literally almost the exact same conversation every time I do this. And ultimately, you could go to TCG Player, you could start an eBay, you could find how to sell to larger buyers if you really wanted to. Now, I will tell you, the larger buyers thing, that's a bit of a scale issue. So that's maybe a little harder, because yes, you could sell small lots, but it's a little harder than that. The people I am talking to, they want pallets of bulk. They don't just want a single box or 500 cards. They work with hundreds of versions of me, right? Because they need millions and millions of cards a month, and that's wild to me. In fact, the person I talked with yesterday or 2 days ago, here I was thinking like, oh, I've processed all this bulk and I've done so well, and to be honest, I have. For me, I've just been starting out for 6 months. I've done a lot, but when they're like, oh yeah, we only ship by the pallet basically, and you need this amount of cards containing this much weight effectively to get to a pallet that makes sense to do the shipping. And I was like, just out of curiosity, how often? And they were like, oh well, we work with this PokeTuber. I'm not going to name them, mostly just out of consideration to both parties. And they're like, they ship about a 500,000 a month, and that's pretty easy for them. And I was like, really? And they were like, yeah, well, they're a rip and ship, and yeah, that's sort of a giveaway, but there's many of them, so I'll leave it there. And I was like, 500,000 a month just from ripping. I was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, well, it takes me a lot more to collect that amount. So it was wide and eye opening for me, and my eyes were wide, because it was like, wow. On one hand, recently when I did a bulk drop off, and they were so gracious, this company, I'm not going to name them, mostly because I loved the relationship, and out of respect to them, I wouldn't do that. But they are a large buyer still, and frankly, they're a large company, a very well-known company in the TCG space. And I did a large drop-off, and they asked me kind of the same, are you a rip and ship? What do you do with this? And when we were talking, I was like, no, I run a very successful server. I'm very proud of the work we do. This is a service that I provide. And when we were talking, I asked them what did they do with it, and they told me they're just a part in the chain. They move up to another bulk buyer, and I found that interesting because they're such a large company themselves. And then within a week, their rates changed. It was all, now I'm not saying I broke them, right? But like within a week, they went from one rate that was very attractive to a rate that would be unsustainable from a business standpoint. So I found that interesting that even the really big guys that you think of and you know of and you're in the space, they have variable adjusted pricing the way I talked about a couple videos back. And then they also, have to deal with the likes of me, but they want to deal with the likes of me because somebody above them is dealing with 10 of them. Ultimately, like this ecosystem, this food chain, as it were, is built on a lot of layers. And when it comes down to me, I'm at the base layer, right? And I'm working with people to collect 1,000 here, 5,000 here, 10,000 here, 50,000 there, so that I can collect enough to be close to that. I would love to be, at a million cards a month. I think that would be amazing, mostly because it would show so much growth. And in order to get there, I gotta hire, right? So we're back on that. When I'm looking, like I said, I'm looking for grit. I'm looking for someone who works through the unglamorous. And bulk processing, like I said, is just not glamorous. Sorting cards for hours is not glamorous. The people who thrive in this environment are the ones who find satisfaction in the work, not the outcome. And a willingness to learn means coming into it, you do not know everything, and you're generally okay with that. And sometimes it's somebody who likes the tedium, who likes the process, who likes the fact that there is a process. Some people thrive in that, and some people do not. And I got to tell you, like I said the other day, that one of the individuals that I'm going to be sort of working with. I don't want to say hiring, employing, because it's not their relationship, but they're the sorting and sifting doesn't tickle their brain, but they are going to do it, right? That's something that they're going to do as a part of the process. It's just not something that they would love to do, right? What they, I think, are going to thrive in is being kind of the mule, as I think I said to them jokingly, but like going out and finding things. And then one of the things I do with anybody who sorts and sifts with me is, if they're often master setters, if you're working on my behalf and you're doing things, however our relationship is, however our compensation profile is, I want you to pull cards that you like. Either you like them or you need them for your master sets. It does not matter. Just give the numbers so that they can report out to the individuals that I'm paying. But if you see 10 cards, 20 cards, 50, I do not genuinely care, because that's a benefit to me, especially since these are hobbyists who are helping. And I want to make sure that they're compensated beyond just what's on the page, what we've spoken to in kind of the negotiation part, but something that makes them satisfied in kind of the treasure hunt of keeping going through the process. What I said at the top, respect is earned, trust is given, but both can be lost quickly. I start from a place of trust. I give it freely at the beginning of every relationship I'm in. It does not matter. I want to trust a person inherently. Now, I get burned by this, and you have to be willing to both get burned and get back on the horse. And some people are just not willing to do that. They've been burned before, and they will never trust again. Or that relationship that hurt them, or that girlfriend, or that boyfriend, or their parents, or whomever. It doesn't really matter. They've been burned in trust, and they do not willingly give it back. And for me, I start from, if I've lost trust in a person, that's not the same thing as losing trust in people. And the inverse is also true. If you remember kind of the Men in Black, in the Men in Black movie, Tommy Lee Jones is talking to Will Smith, and he says something like, a person is smart, people are dumb. And for me, trust is given to the individual. People in mass can kind of be harder to trust because you don't know who's doing what. But when I'm having a one-on-one conversation, if I'm engaging with somebody, I inherently give them my trust. And I'm willing to be burned and get back on the horse. Respect has to be earned, though. Respect is something that's demonstrated through how you treat people, how you handle the work, how you show up when nobody's watching. And if either one of those gets broken, trust or respect, it's very hard to get it back from me. So that's the difference. I may give it more freely, but if you burn me, it is much harder to earn that trust back. Now, execute or excel. This is a framework I use for every task I'm giving, whether it's work or my personal life, and certainly for the things that we'll be doing in the business. The job must be execution. All right, the first job is to execute. Do the task as defined. Do it well. Do it completely. That is the baseline. But the goal, the thing that separates the good from the great, is to excel. To look at the process as something where you can say, all right, is there a way to do this more efficiently? Is there a way that nobody else noticed? This one piece is inefficient, or this one thing I could be more effective at, or I have an idea of how to better use the sorting tray or the counting machine, or when you do intake, I think we need to do the intake differently because I don't want to mislabel whose lot this is. All of these things, I don't really care where you think you can bring efficiencies. Ultimately, at the end of the day, execute and excel is reliant on the person to find their way towards excel. Now, when I'm looking at something and it's someone in particular, it's what do they bring to the table that wasn't asked for that makes everything better? And again, that could be little things. They better sort the cards, or they make sure that all the playables are always in one bucket, whatever it may be. But I do want somebody to make sure that, or want somebody who I believe can bring something to the table that is more than just the tasking of the job. And mostly because as a small business, I need to rely on people that can do the job, and I'm benefited a bit more from people who can excel a little bit, just even 1% more. That 1% difference added up over time can literally mean all the difference in your success. All right, now here's what all that requires from me. If I want people to excel, I have to give them three things: the opportunity to grow, and growth really means the chance to learn, to fuck up, and to try it again without fear. I have to provide a space where they're not fearing messing up, the space to test and try and do something different without it being a crisis if it doesn't work. Oh, you wanted to try this thing, and now we're behind on this lot, and we're going to have to make it up in the back end from a timing perspective. That's okay. You tried, it failed, it's okay. Get back on. Let's do it the typical way now, and let's find a different way, because clearly there's something that you're thinking of that you see kind of a void from an efficiency gap. So let's figure that out together. And then the ability to speak up. And this is what I was saying before. I think there's a better way. Can I show you the culture I'm building? I want people that want to work in an environment where people want to do their best work, but also are willing to speak up and say, hey, I don't like this, or I think we need to change this, or again, I know where and why you built this process for when it was just you, but for me, I kind of need to modify it, and here's why and how it will benefit. All of that should be a part of any culture, frankly, as it relates to business. Now, yesterday in the business, four things. First, the singles collection didn't come through at the pop-up, and honestly, I told them the truth. I think they can get a better deal on the server, but I also told them if they wanted an easier transaction, and I would be a backstop. They took that advice. That's how I want to do business: put the customer's interest first and trust that it will come back around. Second, and took roughly 20 or so, 30, maybe 30,000 cards at the pop-up across 7 to 8 people who came by. It was a really busy pop-up in the rain. It was torrential downpour. It rained for like 15 minutes straight. Just I was under the cover of the back of the way my trunk lifts up, and we were doing deals. It was kind of amazing because everybody was huddled in and doing their best, and there was a adorable son who was thankfully put in the car, not getting wet. A brother and sister combination that wanted the same white flare ETB. That was my mistake. I did not bring enough for them both. They didn't know that each one was coming either, to be fair. So when they saw each other, it was like, what are you doing here? The sister did get the white flare. That's what she was after. And the brother ended up being gracious, and thank you from the bottom of my heart, the graciousness with which you showed. And they did their trade plus cash on top for a Black Bolt ETB. And they're actually using kind of trades to get into bigger ticket items so they can get to a base at Charizard. So their graciousness makes me want to work with them even more in the future to help them get towards that goal. And on the flip side, the what I learned from the sister, and this is something I think everybody kind of needs to hear, is do not use collector pricing when you're doing deals. I don't care what it is, single, seals, slabs. I stop using it. It's not the market space. It's a good indicator, but it's a lagging indicator. For instance, yesterday, white flare was, I don't know, 115, 120 on collector, but it was like 140 or something market. And we were having a conversation. She was like, so however you want to handle the rest. And I was like, in my head, I'm like, the rest, like, you don't have enough for this right now. But she went through my singles, and once we started to pull up, I was like, okay, so the market is this. She was like, oh, I thought it was under. She thought I had to make up a gap for her, and I would have had I needed to. But that's just not the way it was. So word of advice to anyone doing deals: do not. Collector's great for inventory management as a personal seller, or just as a person, or just a collector, or a hobbyist, or however you want to call yourself, but it is terrible for dealing with market pricing. Please do not use that. Third, launched a new service. I'm buying now loose packs and sleeve packs for people who have a little too much. Maybe they came out of a collection box. Maybe you bought some sleeves and you don't want to rip them anymore because you've ripped the chase. Maybe you just need to get cash back. If you've got packs sitting around, you want to come and turn them into money, come find me. Either, again, Discord is how I communicate often with people, but you can also reach out to me here on YouTube. And then fourth, I built 2 bricks, and that was all from 3 recent bulk parts. That's a part of the operation. It's just how I move things in large quantities. Now, here's where I'm headed. Tonight, I'm going to go live, sifting, sorting, and preparing for tomorrow's drop off. And then that's where I'll be training the person that I'm genuinely excited to be working with as a part of the effort to expand my operations. And this is a big moment for me, the first kind of hiring, as it were. And I want I want the community to be a part of that. I'll go over the weekly recap tomorrow, like I said, on Fridays. I'll talk a little bit about the new ventures announcement that's getting closer, and ultimately the build is happening, guys. So I'm also going to be over the next couple days, I'm going to do kind of a how-to video of how to fit the 7,360 cards in a flat rate priority box so that those who wish to ship to me can ship to me. I would love to buy your bulk. If you have any questions about that process, you can just reach out to me as well. As well, excuse me, if any of this sounds interesting to you, follow the link to our Discord and let me know what successes or challenges you've had today in the comments below. I'll see you next time. Same bad channel.